So with today's video, it's going to be short and quick to kind of end out the week, and I wanted to talk about Meddler doing another quick gameplay thoughts for January 18th, which is the day I was recording this video. And even though in the post there's some other interesting tidbits like Galio, Or, and Sejuani where they landed balance-wise after their changes, for example, we overbuffed Galio in retrospect. Interesting. One of the more major talking points is assessing damage output. As mentioned, we're doing some work looking at rates and sources of damage output in the game at present, hoping to have details to share about our conclusions by the end of next week. A bit of info on both how we're approaching the problem at current and thinking as well below. Some of the angles we're looking at this from is damage output from different profiles of characters, output from a full offensive build versus a defensive build. Ability to survive damage along the same lines of full defensive build, hybrid builds, full offensive build, etc. States of damage output at different points in the game. These are issues throughout the game, primarily in laning phase, mainly in late game, team fights, etc. Where damage is coming from, base abilities, ratios, item, unique effects, runes, etc. How much of the issue is total damage output versus how bursty that damage is. And then how repeatable high amounts of damage are. This is something that can be done every rotation or is dependent on a long CD being used. Goal in answering those questions is to try and target our changes at the specific cases really in need. Avoid either making changes that were inappropriate or they're not making big enough changes where it really matters. Some things we're considering trending towards in that regard. Damage from champion kits is generally not the issue. Early game laning damage is overall appropriate with some clear exceptions. Ability to stack up front damage from a range of systems, item uniques, and runes especially create some issues. We've potentially got scaling in too many different places, ratios on kits, items, and runes, leading to too much of a win more lose more scenario once a lead's achieved by one side or the other. And one of the things I want to talk about to end this video on with my own thoughts on it, in case you care about those or just want to listen to my voice for a little bit longer, is the ability to stack upfront damage from a range of systems, unique items, and runes especially. Here what I picture this as is a conversation I had with August, or a couple of us did actually, on his stream about what he thought, the issue was with high damage in this game. And to summarize his point, which kind of aligns with my point a bit, it does kind of come down to the new runes we forge. Not necessarily that runes we forge is like totally bad, 100% problematic, and etc, etc. But one of the things as an example that August used was, let's say old Thunderlord's Regards had a like 0.3 AP ratio, and Electrocute has a 0.2 AP ratio, but has this thing called adaptive damage, meaning that while Thunderlords might stay at the 3 AP ratio, whatever your AP is, of course, sure, Electrocute, even though it has the lower ratio, will get stronger and do more like throughout the game. That's not the greatest example because I don't think that's the actual live numbers currently, either both for former Thunderlords and current Electrocute, but that's an example of with adaptive damage, something that goes up higher than just the damage that you were taking in just the rune. So in terms of like past seasons and stuff with the old system, there was like still a fixed number, even though that number might be changed. Like let's say you took runes and you had like extra damage in your runes and then you took Thunderlords, it'd still be like a set number that wouldn't maybe change all that much throughout the course of the game, versus now when you have adaptive damage, you have adaptive runes and stuff like that, that will change over the course of the game. And even recently they introduced stat runes, and one of those stat runes is like adaptive damage. So there you go, you have a lot of adaptive damage, which will then create more and more damage in the game that way. And one of the points that August also made that I also kind of agree with is in the old rune system, right? You could have, let's say, damage reds, but you'd have like defensive, let's say armor yellows and like magic resist blues that you kind of really don't have right now. There are some defensive options now that they have stat runes specifically, but just in the runes like reforged by themselves, like without that, there really wasn't, right? Like you could take the defensive tree, but if you didn't, or maybe your champion really kind of didn't want to, regardless of the matchup or situation, you were kind of in a bit of a struggle. So with that being said, I'm kind of excited for them to look at runes specifically because I don't think the whole system's bad or trash, but I do think that's probably the most of where they could probably put some player satisfaction back in the system, is addressing, how do they feel about adaptive damage and stuff like that. And then, because that affects every champion, right? So if damage is too high across the board, that's something that could maybe, ease down the damage across the board for everybody without having to nerf specific champions and start going that path, right? So that being said, The question I want to leave off with you is, if you think there is too much damage in the game, where do you think that comes from? And if you actually don't think there's too much damage in the game, why do you think that is? And what are some things that maybe players could look for? A conversation that could be started around why maybe the damage isn't too high, and maybe if it is, it's more specific to a certain champion that's meta and been meta for a while, just doing like crazy amounts of damage or something like that. So with that being said, that is today's video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. This was the quick gameplay thoughts for January 18th. In case I don't have the link in the description down below in the comment section, you can find it on the boards by going to Meddler, looking in the dev corner, quick gameplay thoughts for January 18th. If you want to see both the rest of the posts and of course the post that I'm talking about specifically. So, I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until this time, take care, GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.